Hello and welcome to Foster Memorial Church. I am Judy, here with Jerry, and we would like to bring you on a virtual tour of our church gardens. We are also known as the Garden Angels here at our church. We would like to thank Jamie, our videographer, Dick Pond, who has given us assistance over time, and Vivian, who cheers us on. Since we continue to be separated due to the quarantine, this tour was a way to explain what has happened over the past years and during the quarantine. Our first stop we call the Peace and Love Garden, as it helps symbolize our church's message. We decided to do this here because of the poor consistency of the soil. The rocks were donated by Joe Rosati, who also helped us measure for the mulch and the sizing for the peace and love symbol. We do have some perennials that survived. However, we were unable to grow the annuals due to the poor soil. And this is how we came up with making the peace and the love symbols.
The soil in this garden is overloaded with roots, so we decided that since hostas are very hardy, we would plant some here. They were donated from some of our church family and friends. The lily of the valley, which is not visible now because they bloomed in early spring, came from behind the church shed. We also have an area over here that next year we hope to plant more hostas, and we will be looking for donations from anyone who has them.
Over here, we have a mini pumpkin patch. These were grown from pumpkin seeds that are actually from some of the pumpkins from our October pumpkin patch. We're hoping to get at least one pumpkin this fall. Over here, we have two beautiful, huge Rose of Sharon bushes that actually are the size of trees, but they are just gorgeous. We did a lot of cleaning underneath there, a lot of shrubbery, a lot of overgrowth. We had many piles of tons of branches. We also, underneath this Rose of Sharon, there was a maple tree growing in between, and we had to cut off some of the branches of the maple tree because it was choking up the Rose of Sharon bush. Over here in the parking lot area, there was so much overgrowth. It was going out into the parking lot and into the parking spots. So we decided that we would do some trimming. The trimming actually ended up to a lot of sawing and clipping and raking, and then we had to do it again because it grew out again. But now, all the way over here, when you do come, the overgrowth is now not going into the parking lot and the parking places, so it won't scratch anybody's cars.
This garden started out using large pieces of stones and rocks in order to keep the neighborhood animals away. We eventually added some perennials that were taken from the former church house, and these perennials were a donation from several of our mentoring fosterians. We call this petunia the Mr. Pond plant, and the reason for that is Mr. Pond took this old rusted stand, scraped, sanded, painted it, giving it new life, so we put this petunia in it and named it the Mr. Pond plant. We refer to this area as the desert because the soil is very dry and takes a lot of water to keep plants hardy. But we had good luck with the vincas and our old standby, the hosta, and a few other mystery perennials. This chicken plant started out quite tiny, but had tremendous growth. So we plan to divide it up next year and put some in a new location.
This garden also was a problem garden for us too over the years. We would try to plant the beautiful annual colorful flowers, but year after year they would quickly die out. The problem that we found was too many roots and very poor soil. So we decided to plant some perennials, Japanese iris, hostas, and the lilies. They are all doing wonderful, and they do like this kind of soil with the roots. So therefore, we will keep it this way and keep it beautiful. About a week ago, Dick started doing our trimming of the bushes, and he went all the way around to all our bushes. And then as Dick trims the bushes, Jerry and I, we rake all the droppings out. As we were raking the other night, we found a little nest, and some little baby came out and tried to scurry back into the nest, and we made sure safely the little baby got back into its nest, which I do want to say, while we were gardening during the quarantine, we were experiencing so much of Mother Nature. The birds were chirping louder. We saw the squirrels. There's an overabundance of chipmunks. There's little bunnies. I don't know what it is about the quarantine, but Mother Nature has been beautiful out here in our church grounds. This garden we call the stump garden for very obvious reasons. This plant here, my father donated from his garden. It's a perennial. I forgot the name of it. I'm sorry. But he also gave us these two that were in there. They started to reseed themselves and filled in the whole stump. We also put some seeds up here because normally we do have a garden budget. But this year we used a lot of seeds and we planted them on top of the stump along here, along with some donations of perennials, the vicas again, these, also here, Cosmo, and then we have a planter from Barbara Nason. Along on the side over there, we have some portulacas. Usually we buy portulaca plants, and then it was like a miracle. They reseeded themselves, and then the portulacas started growing all by themselves. So therefore, we did not have to buy any portulacas this year, and soon they'll be overhanging with beautiful flowers. Now I would like to bring you around to the other side of the stump garden. And on the back side of the stump, we had beautiful white daisies that were in full bloom several weeks ago. They have now bloomed and died off, and we had to clip them down, but we do have a picture of some of the beautiful daisies. Here we have a lavender plant that started off 2 years ago as a little baby plant. We have some plants here that have leaves that are like lamb's ears. Also, we have black-eyed Susans that have been donated to us from some of our foster folks. We have sunflowers that will be blooming in several weeks. And then on the other side, we do have some Japanese irises. This garden was one of our biggest projects during the quarantine time. Last year, one time, Pastor Barbara mentioned about having a meditation garden on the grounds of our church. All she had to mention it to us one time, and we were on that job. What we had to do is we had to pull the leaves out, the overgrowth of the bushes, the weeds, and then we extended the garden out by turning over some of the grass. We leveled it off. We laid newspaper and then some weed block, and then we did some mulch. Then these plants, the majority of them also come from seeds that we started growing, I would say probably in the middle, well, no, towards the end of March. And we had them on our kitchen tables growing. And then when they finally got big enough, we brought the pots over to the church and put them on the steps so they could get Mother Nature's sun. Over here, I would like to point out this purple petunia plant. While we've been gardening, there is a woman that goes along the sidewalk. She's probably shopping over at the stores past the intersection. And we would say hello to her. Very quiet woman. She would nod. And then finally, after about a month or so, she came up to us with this beautiful purple petunia. She donated the plant to us because our church was the only church that would do her grandmother's funeral back in the day, and she said she will never forget that.
The decorative rocks that you're looking at now are from a few locations around the area. We have some from the North Shore, East Long Meadow, and Ludlow. The slate pieces leading up to the water fountain we found at different areas in the church as we were scouting about looking for things. The cross that you're viewing now, that is from the base of what we used for the scarecrows last year for the pumpkin patch.
The flower pots on our steps are our traditional flower pots that we have every year. Some of them are the impatient plants that we ended up buying, but then also some of the flowers are from seeds that we also grew. Along the sides, on each side of the sidewalk, we grew these by seed, and they are doing pretty good. We had a little bit of a problem with the beetles, but we hope that we took care of that problem. We also have collected these rocks along our walks that we do on our own.
This poster displays some of our plants that were in their flowering stages that has now passed. It is our hope that in the future, these gardens can be viewed in person. So from Foster Memorial Church, we thank you for joining us on our virtual flower garden tour, and we wish you peace